did you move, or were you born in Old Orchard Beach?
No, I was born northeast of here up in the Lewiston area is where I was actually born. And I moved into the Old Orchard area. Actually, I moved into Biddeford to start with in 1953, the fall of 1953. And then I moved to the town of Old Orchard Beach after I came back from school in September of 1960 is when I moved to Old Orchard Beach permanently.
Do you have any siblings in Old Orchard Beach?
In Old Orchard now, no.
Or
All my siblings are out of Old Orchard Beach now.
or just any siblings in general? Or
Of my brothers and sisters, my siblings are all up in the Brunswick Bath area.
I think we should. Sorry about I hate that thing. Where did you live in Old Orchard Beach?
In Old Orchard Beach, when I came back to stay in Old Orchard Beach, I bought a home down on Tunis Avenue, which is down off West Grand Avenue.
Okay.
My wife and I bought this house, and at the time when we bought it, it was called 8 Tunis Avenue. We bought this house.
Okay.
That was in 1962. Yeah, March of 1962.
Childhood, like in
My childhood,
Old Orchard Beach.
well, I didn't grow up in Old Orchard Beach. I grew up in when as a child, I grew up in the Bath Brunswick area, and my father owned a grocery store. So my childhood was growing up in a grocery business, packing shelves and bagging groceries and helping people with their merchandise to their automobiles and things of that nature. There was it was a good life.
Yeah. Do you have any fond memories of Old Orchard Beach?
Fond memories of Old Orchard Beach? Yes. Yes. I remember one night I was working for the church at the time. It was in the 60s. And all of a sudden, the electricity went out in Old Orchard Beach. And looked out the door from the St. Margaret's Church. I looked outside, and there was one massive fire going on down on the beach where the Grand Victorian Hotel is now. There was a massive fire. Everything was burning.
The Velvet Hotel, or was it one of the pier fires?
It was with the pier fire at the time. It was what burned. It burned all of that, not the hotel because it wasn't there, but there was a whole bunch of amusements there. And they burned that whole amusement park down. That was in the 60s. They had another big fire here years before that in the late 40s where the wooden roller coaster that used to be here burned down. Now that wooden roller coaster is where today's merry-go-round is, in that area.
Oh. Hmm. What was your favorite ride there at the amusement park?
Oh. My favorite ride in the amusement park. Glory sakes alive. I did like to ride the roller coaster.
What was it called? Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but what was the roller coaster called?
Just a roller coaster that was just an amusement that was in the amusement park down there at the time.
Okay. Do you have? We've heard about there was a thing called a donkey mine there. There was a donkey ride there.
Oh, yes. During that fire that was in the 60s, there used to be a place called Noah's Ark where it was a big ship, and down underneath Noah's Ark was what they called the coal mine. And used to have donkey rides in this coal mine down underneath. And those donkeys, every night when everything was all done and they were closing the park up for the night, they would walk those donkeys back up to where the present day fire station is right now. There used to be a barn there, and because that was all farmland up in there, and they'd walk those donkeys up there for the night, and then the next afternoon they'd walk them back down, and they'd have that coal mine ride underneath Noah's Ark, and that all burned in that fire, in the fire that we had in the 60s, and I think it was middle 60s, somewhere around there.
Was there any other rides that we don't have today?
Is there any other rides that we don't have today? I can't think of anything right off quick, but there must be something, because they did change a lot of the rides, but to tell you the truth, I can't remember all what was there. I remember one time that TV show called Route 66 came to town, and they had a ride where the stars of that show rode around in, and that was in the area where today's merry-go-round is. It was in that area in there, in the Ferris wheel, the merry-go-round where they are now. It was in that area, and it was one of these rides that started low, and then as it spun around and spun around, it would raise itself up way up high and go way out. And they were filming one of those episodes of Route 66 at that time here.
What was your favorite memory of Old Orchard Beach?
My favorite memories of Old Orchard Beach?
Yeah.
The girl that I fell in love with and married. Yeah. We were married 60 years before she passed away.
Our condolences.
Thank you very much. But and she lived right here on Union Avenue, which is just down the street from where we are at now. Graduated from Old Orchard Beach High School in 1955. Yeah. One of my greatest memories, or the greatest memory, I should say, really.
Oh, did you, actually, I think you already answered this. Did you go through the OOB system, the Old Orchard Beach school system?
No.
Yes.
I actually graduated from Brunswick High School. That's where I graduated from. I migrated down this way in 1953 because in Biddeford they had an engineering trade school that I wanted to go to school. So I came down this way to go to school in Biddeford. There was an engineering trade school put on by company called Soccer Shops at that time. And when I graduated from there, shortly after graduation, I got married, and my wife and I moved off to Massachusetts to work for a company down there.
What year did you graduate high school?
I graduated high school in June of 1953.
Oh.
Question 6.
What was your first job in Old Orchard Beach?
I never really worked in Old Orchard Beach, but if you want to call it a job, my first job here is when I came back and retired from my actual job. I went to work with the fire department and the police department, helping them around town for things like automobile accidents and fires and stuff like that. It was a volunteer service more than any kind of a paid job at that time.
Okay. What other jobs did you have?
My whole career was in the engineering field, and I went from engineering and working on machinery that was textile machinery to shipbuilding machinery to high-speed automatic machinery to paper mill machinery. But I spent my whole life in that field, designing and building machinery.
Orchard Beach during World War II. What was that like?
No, I didn't live in this area at that time. In World War II, I was a young man, and I was living in the Brunswick area. An area, it was an area of Brunswick called New Meadows. That's where I lived.
Are there any stories about the history of Old Orchard Beach that you experienced?
Stories about this Old Orchard Beach, yeah. Old Orchard Beach, when I first came here in the 50s, there were only probably 4,000 or 5,000 permanent residents that lived here in this town. But in the summertime, when beaches were open and everything, the population in the town of Old Orchard Beach could raise as much as 100,000 people. We would be that many people living in this town because there was all kinds of rental property. And we have an influx from everywhere, New York, Canada, and Boston, and all those kinds of places like that. They'd come up from the south, they'd come down from the north, and they were here.
Yeah, that's why they did call Maine vacation land, because
Yeah, and the vacation land is right for that reason.
Are there any other memories you would like to share with us?
Well, yes, there used to be on the Old Orchard Street, the main street in the town of Old Orchard, called Old Orchard Street. There used to be some old hotels up and down the street. There were nice places to go. They used to have like Saturday night dances there and all that kind. There was always some kind of a festivity going on up and down the street in Old Orchard. We had near the bottom of the Old Orchard Street, we had a man there named Mr. Mocastle that had a beautiful, beautiful fruit market. It was a nice place. I grew up in the fruit market, so I could appreciate it when I came here. It was nice to be able to go there and get a real good piece of fruit like I would see in my own father's store at home.
Um, okay. In Old Orchard Beach, that drastically changed throughout your time living here. And have you been affected by it in any way?
Some of the things that have drastically changed. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, young man. I'm not sure what I can say has drastically changed. The thing that probably most drastically changed is that the population has increased here in Old Orchard. From when I first came here, like I said, there was probably 4,000 to 5,000 permanent residents. We probably got closer to 9,000 today, permanent residents.
Well, doubled. Let's take out the drastically. Anything that changed throughout your time living here? It doesn't have to be big. It could be a small shop closed down. A tattoo place back then is now a fruit place. Or something.
Well, yeah, one thing they did do is took the bell out of the bell tower in Old Orchard Town Hall. That bell, if you go into the town hall and you see that bell sitting on the floor near the clerk's office, that used to be up in the tower.
Why did they take it down?
I don't know why they took it down, but a friend of mine who's now deceased he and I were one of the last few people who ever rang that bell.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Charlie and I were one of the last few people that rang the bell in the bell tower at the town hall.
Wow. I did not know that. I wonder why they still call it a bell tower with full bell.
Oh, it'll always be a bell tower, because that's the way it's built. It's like the bell tower on the church. There's no longer any chimes or bell up in there, but there's still a bell tower on St. Margaret's Church. It's
or a victim of any catastrophic events in Old Orchard Beach, and has it affected you in any way?
a witness.
Like the fire.
Well, other than witnessing the big fires, yes, that I witnessed. And the way that affected me in the 60s, I can remember, was that I was living down on Tunis Avenue at the time, and they had to pump so much water through the pipelines to fight that fire that my house on Tunis Avenue, we had rusty water from our spigots for about a week before it cleared up. And that was because pumping so much water through the lines so quickly disturbed a lot of rust in those old iron pipes. But other than that, that fire was devastating. It was all because of the negligence of someone who, according to the fire inspectors, put some kind of a coin behind a fuse because the fuse kept burning out, and they didn't want to keep burning fuses, so they put some kind of a metal disc behind it to make the circuit continue, and it overheated, and that's what set the fire.
I know there's been multiple fires in Orchard Beach. Have you witnessed the 60s fire? Have you witnessed any more?
Oh yeah, I've been to a few of them. We had a fire that burned the old Americano Motel down at the end of Heath Street, and at that time I was working with the fire department and the police department as traffic and crowd control, and I was at that fire. We had the grass fire that was down on East Grand Avenue. I attended that particular fire. We had a big fire on East Grand Avenue, a building fire across the street from where the Grand Victoria is in that area now. And that was quite a large building in there. And I attended that, but I was working with the fire and police department as traffic and crowd control at the time. So I observed those fires, yes. I don't know, I can't think of any more right off quick.
As an adult, do you still feel that way?
Oh yes, I like living here in Old Orchard Beach, yes. And staying, well, like I said, I married a girl and we stayed here, and we finally sold our property down on the beach on Tunis Avenue and built ourselves a new home up on Milliken Mills Road in Old Orchard Beach. And we're still in Old Orchard Beach, and I like being here. It's a nice town. I find no fault with it. I might gripe once in a while about this or that, but everything seems to be good. My street gets plowed good for me every day. Once in a while my mailbox gets knocked down, but we can fix that.
My dad used to get so
Yeah, but my street gets plowed and that sort of thing, and I do have a fire hydrant that's only about 60 feet away from my house, so.
If anything burns down,
Yeah.
I was thinking.
Yeah. But yes, I like living in Old Orchard Beach. This is my home. My children, our children, grew up here, both graduated from Old Orchard Beach High School. Yeah.
What was one of your favorite things to do in Orchard Beach?
My favorite thing to do in Old Orchard Beach? Well, I did like to go to the beach, even though I wasn't a big beacher. I did like to go to the beach. I used to like to wander around downtown, walk down around town, see all the tourists, that sort of thing like that.
Do you have any hobbies that you like to do in Orchard Beach?
Well, the hobby that I had was woodworking. I do have a good woodworking shop in the basement of my house right now, and I build all kinds of different things. I've built me a music center. I built a big boat and made it into a music center. I built me a wall to go in my bathroom. I've built things for my daughters, my wife, My wife used to like to have shoes, and I built her a shoe box so that she could put her 30 or 40 pairs of shoes in. And my daughter built one for her also, with probably as many holes.
Do you have a favorite thing to do in Legend Beach? Like,
Favorite what? Thing?
yeah, like a favorite object or something.
If I had a favorite thing, it would probably be cruising around town. I spend time cruising around town because I try to be, with my association with the police and fire department, I try to be an extra set of eyes and ears for the police and fire department. So I move about town quite a lot, around town quite a lot. Ooh, no, it's not still here. I used to like to hang out in the roller skating rink. We had a roller skating rink on Staple Street Extension on the right side, headed toward the beach, headed toward the water. There was a roller skating rink in there. Even though I couldn't roller skate very, very good, I used to like to hang out there and watch people skate and all that. And occasionally they would have what they called wrestling matches at that roller skating rink. They'd bring in these what they call them, WWE style wrestlers, and they'd have wrestling matches at that roller skating rink. But my wife was very, very good at roller skating, so she liked it, and I liked it, even though I was not good at it at all.
Was it like roller derby where people run around or
No, it wasn't roller derby, but they all did. Yeah, they circled. They roller skated in a circle, and they had what they called the floor monitors, so that if you were acting up or disturbing somebody with the way you were roller skating, they would speak to you. And if you were real bad and nasty, you may get ejected.
I can just imagine some big bouncer on roller skates.
Well, they weren't big bouncers. They were just people who were really good at skating so that they could catch up with anybody that was disturbing people or that sort of thing, and they backwards, frontwards, whatever, they could catch them. Well, the big landmarks were like those nice old hotels that we had on the main Old Orchard Street, Main Street itself, the main drag itself. Those were places from way back in the early years, because people used to come here in the early years. They'd come by ship, north or from the south, because the pier at one time was about twice as long as it is today. It was way out there, at least 1,000 feet out. And it had a little miniature railroad on it where the ships would pull up, people would disembark, and that little railroad would bring them to the mainland. And people would come and stay here all summer long. They would come to visit in Old Orchard and stay all summer long, be it whether they came from the north or from the south. Yeah, that was one of the big things that was here that's no longer here. That pier itself was a lot longer than it is today. And we had 3 or 4 that I can remember of, real bad storms that took pieces of the pier down when the storm broke, hurricanes and all that.
Do you miss being a kid? That's one of the questions. Do you miss being a kid?
Nah, I don't know if I miss being a kid, but I miss being a lot younger. I would love to have stopped aging about 50 or 60 years old rather than today, but no.
You kind of.
As a young man, as a kid, young kid, my duties were to work in my father's grocery store, packing shelves, bagging groceries, helping people get them to their vehicle, those kinds of things.
You kind of already answered this, but what did the pier look like when you were growing up?
When I first came here in 1948, I came on a vacation in 1948, and the pier was at least twice as long as it is today, and it had already been shortened, but it was at least twice as long, and they used to have a great large ballroom on the end of it. And they'd have dancers there, and they had big bands that came there, like Glenn Miller and Louis Armstrong, and those kinds of big bands would come and play at the pier. And at one time, I saw Louis Armstrong here, but he didn't play at the pier that time. There was a building on West Grand Avenue, and it was across the street from where the Americana Hotel is today. There was a big brick building in there, and I remember watching Louis Armstrong in that building. They had I think it was a 3-story building, and they had a great large gathering or auditorium, if you will, on the 2nd floor. And I remember watching Louis Armstrong there.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Anything else I'd like to share? Yes. If anybody is looking for a place to come to live, that you can live comfortably and be left alone when you don't want to be bothered, Old Orchard Beach is a good place to live. I think you young men, when you grow up, if you stay here until you become adults, big adults, you will realize that this is some of the best times of your life in this town. We are a small town, but we're a good town. We have good people here. We have good people here.
We have some extra. Oh, are you done? Okay. We have some extra questions, if you don't mind, if you still.
Sure, go ahead. What else you got, young man?
Did you ever go to any of the concerts at the ballpark for the pier?
Yes. I saw Cher at the ballpark one night. We went there to the ballpark and the concert there. That was quite an experience. Right in this building, the Laranja School where we're at right now, you got a big organ in here.
Oh yeah, they played it.
And we used to have some nice concerts here. We had an organist that I don't know whom it was or who it was, but we had an organist that would come in and play, and we had some nice concerts right here in this building. It was, at that time, this was Old Orchard Beach High School, not the junior high school. It was the high school before they built the new one, when that organ got put in. Yeah.
Were you here when the famous big bands played? Which band was your favorite?
No, I really wasn't here when the famous big bands came, but like I said, the only one that I really saw was Louis Armstrong, but that was years and years later. And other than that, but I've been told bands like Glenn Miller Band played out on the pier, and I can't think of the name of the other ones. There was a number of them that used to come here. This was a known spot to come for the summertime for these big bands, and they would come and play. They had that big banquet place at the end of the pier.
Any of the horse races at the kite track?
No, I never went in there at all. I never got to the kite track at all. That, I think it was still operating when I first came here in the 50s, but I never went to the kite track.
Have you met any famous people that have come to visit Orchard Beach?
Who would have been famous that I would have met that came to Orchard? No, I can't say that I have, that I can think of anybody, no.
Have you seen the Dummy Railroad? Did you ever ride on it?
No, I never rode the Dummy Railroad, but I owned a strip of land one time. It was where the Dummy Railroad went by. The house that I owned on Tunis Avenue, there was a 20-foot wide strip of land. It's what they call the Dummy Railroad, went down from, and the Dummy Railroad started from Union Avenue and went all the way to Camp Ellis. Yeah, went all the way to Camp Ellis. And that they had a 20-foot wide railroad that was down there that I finally purchased that piece of land that abutted my land on Tunis Avenue. But I never rode it, and it wasn't there at the time. And I got that piece of land from the town of Old Orchard Beach. They owned it at the time I got it.
Were you on the beach when any of the planes landed?
Yes. One of my details with the fire and police department. This was like 2-3 years ago when he had that. 2 years ago, I think, when the young Walker boy had the fly-in. The planes came in and landed. One of my details was to be on the beach, crowd control, so to speak, working with the police and fire department at the time. And we had quite a few airplanes. I think there was 21 or 22 planes come in, but that's all that's all they would allow. I think there was more scheduled, but they wouldn't allow them to come in.
What do you mean the young Walker boy?
He was the one who, 3 years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, Charlie Walker, who is the plumber here in town, son, who, in fact, I think he graduates from Old Orchard this year.
Yeah.
He graduates this year.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who put this whole thing together so that they could bring the airplanes in. This was the one 3 years ago. The airplanes that came in before, my mother-in-law was telling me when she watched Lindbergh land his plane on the beach. But that was in the 20s.
I got for enough. Your birthday's in Orchard Beach.
Birthdays on Orchard Beach. Quietly, so to speak. Yeah, I would have a little, I was, have a little small quiet birthday party with me and my immediately family mostly. It wasn't something where we invited a lot of people to come, but my wife and children and my in-laws, and we'd have a little family gathering for each one of us at birthday times.
Did you ever go to any dances in the ballroom?
At the pier, no. No, never went to a dance in the ballroom. When the big dances were there, I was 14, 15 years old when I come to visit. I didn't live here totally at that time, but I came to visit. And you weren't allowed to go there until you were more of an adult, 18 plus. So,
What were the restaurants like downtown? What were the restaurants like downtown?
you know, I really can't say because I never did patronize the restaurants downtown. If anything, I might have stopped at a hot dog stand or something like that, or one of the pizza stands, like Bill's Pizza. Bill's Pizza's been there forever, or Pierre Fry's, and got something like that. But as far as going into a restaurant as we know them today, like JJ's or Strike Zone or one of them kind of things there, I didn't go to those places.
This is a rumor, but I heard that back then some kids burnt down. It was either the high school or the middle school. Is that true?
Yeah. There used to be a middle school just down toward the other primary school below us here. There was yes, it got burned down, and 2 or 3 young men served time for it.
Did you know them?
No, I didn't know. I know who they are because I didn't know who they are, but I didn't know them, no. They were local boys from town here. They grew up here in town, and what inspired them to burn the schoolhouse down beyond me. And one of the young men, his father was a policeman. And he got caught, went to jail, spent a couple of years or whatever it was. I don't know what the term was. But there were 3, I think, that were accused of being involved. And how many actually served time, I know this one man did. He's man today. But I don't know whether the other 2 that I understood were involved served time or not. But
Did the dad try to cover for the son since he was a cop?
No, he didn't. You did it, son. You did the crime. You do the time.
That's what my dad says.
Yeah, he says
Is there any, we have 0 questions left, so I'm gonna ask you this. Is there anything that you would like to share about Orchard Beach? Any hidden things? They can be so small, you may think they really don't matter, but it's like anything hidden that most people don't know about Orchard Beach.
Well, I don't know, like I said earlier, I think it's a wonderful place to live and grow up, bring up your children. I think Old Orchard Beach got, even though it's a small school, I think it's got a good school system. You get out what you put into it, but I think you can get a good education going through school here in Old Orchard Beach. I know that both of my daughters got tremendous educations working through the school system here.
Oh, did your daughters teach or go to school here?
Oh yes, my oldest daughter now is she's a teacher. She's a special education teacher. She went to school here, graduated, went off to Farmington to go to college in Farmington, and now she's teaching school out in Michigan. She's in a public school that is on an Indian reservation out in Michigan, and she has a special education that she's teaching out there. My other daughter, my younger daughter, works with people that need help doing all kinds of different things. She takes the young adults actually, and she'll take them, show them how to do banking, take them to the grocery store, show them how to do shopping, or just spend time with them. She has 2 or 3 clients. She has one client in particular who likes to go to all the benefit football games. So she has to take him to the football games. He goes to like Burger King first and has his supper, and then they go to the football games. Things of that nature. They grew up here in town, graduated from high school, from the Old Orchard Beach High School. The younger one went off to be a travel agent. She went off to school to become a travel agent. She only worked at that for a short period of time before she changed fields and went into something else. It's what she's into today, in fact.
Did you have 2 daughters or 3?
Yes, 2 daughters. We had 2 daughters. Yep.
Well, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, well,
I can't think of anything right now. But let me reiterate again. Old Orchard Beach is a nice place to live. I like it here. I don't think I'd move someplace else. They'd have to make it very, very, very
awful here.
No, they'd have to be very, very good to make me move someplace else. Even though I'm all alone in my house. But last summer I wasn't alone, and I had a young man live with me that was a summertime police officer last year. Yeah, he worked for the police department here in Old Orchard, and he lived with me for 3 months. He just might want to come back, I don't know. And if he does, I think my heart is open to let him come.